All right, well, hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to we're pleased to be joined by Dion McCormick, no relation, our lead solutions engineer here at Alpha. Today, I believe Dion is going to be going over expanding menus, if I'm not mistaken. But he's also here to answer your Alpha Anywhere questions. So you can go ahead and type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So hello, Dion, are you there?
Yes, sir. How's everybody doing there?
I'm doing great, thank you. Let me go ahead and make you the presenter. And there's your screen.
Awesome, awesome. Well, first and foremost, if you're here for the Mueller report, I'm sorry to say you're a day early. So join us again tomorrow and we'll be doing a complete rundown of that. I'm almost finished I've got my highlighter out and my pen. I've been redacting like crazy and it's just not.
I heard that they're also going to do an interpretive dance version of the Mueller report, which I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah.
It's going to be very along the lines of Napoleon Dynamite,
Yeah, I
releases
love
the
it.
Mueller report.
Excellent.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you always taking time out of your busy schedule. As we are going to be talking about the expanding menu, but it's kind of a secret way to talk about JSON. So we're going to be talking a lot about JSON today. And again, our goal here is to help you. So help us help you by putting in your questions in the Q&A section of the GoToWebinar control panel. And as always, we really appreciate when people send questions to guides@alphasoftware.com. Helps us drive our stuff, like last week's XBasic stuff was driven out of that. We actually have a follow-up on something that someone sent in as part of the whole JSON thing, which Dave will update in a few minutes. And we just love it. I mean, we're here to listen, to help, to assist, to do what we need to do. So what I'd like to do first is cover a couple of quick slides and a couple demonstrations, then we'll open it up for questions. So make sure you get your questions in ASAP. So what I'd like to dive in here first is, as again, Alpha, this was presented at the Alpha 2018 DevCon. And our goal enormously is to improve the product in every angle and level. And our major portions are in the client side, continuing to improve the client side. And if you'll see, almost every pre-release has an enhancement to the UX builder in terms of new capabilities in the list control, in the actual UX, other pieces there. But also, we spend a lot of time on the server side really enhancing the underlying structure to make it much better. And those ripple directly into Alpha Cloud and into Transform, because guess what? Alpha Cloud and Transform are really built on top of the Alpha Anywhere platform. So that's core to our, you hear a lot about Transform. We want you to know more about Transform. Transform is amazing where it's going, and the growth and leaps and bounds, and the stuff you're going to hear about very soon is going to take it to a whole new level there. But a lot of that is driven by features and enhancements on the server side. So a couple things I want to note was first, one of the key things the team is working on right now, and it's actually on a roadmap, is called reduce memory footprint. So over time, we've actually added a lot of capabilities, facilities, et cetera, to the server, and hence it's it's gained a few pounds. And that will happen to all of us as we do a lot of things without paying attention. So it actually increases the memory footprint on the server, which increases server loads, but also we're finding out in the Alpha Cloud area consumes a lot of resources, et cetera. So the team is heavy at work reducing that memory footprint. You'll see that work a little later this year, and that's going to be great because it's going to allow things to run faster, for your servers to produce, to handle more activity, more users, et cetera, and doing phenomenal work there. And there's a bunch of other things that are being worked on along with the server side stuff. And just it's going really good. So I'm excited about that one. But along with that, also are continued enhancements to the existing functionality. So one in this week, and really drove our conversation, was we had someone ask about the ability to use JSON data types that are now present in MySQL. And I mean, actually, Dave, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you can you have a little bit more familiarity with the process and what happened here. If you could go ahead and just pop in and give us a feel for that, and then I'm going to follow it on from there.
I do. So
Thank
the
you.
question was asked a couple weeks ago. Do you guys support MySQL JSON data types, and our understanding was yes. So we said, yes, of course we support them. And then we were wrong. However, in the new pre-release, MySQL does the JSON data types do come back properly and can now be handled by the system. The cool thing about using JSON data types in a MySQL database is that you can use the power of the MySQL database to do the queries against that actual JSON data. So it's a very, very neat way to start working. And the nice thing also about using JSON data in that sort of unstructured way is you can start adding fields or skipping fields or whatever without having to make actual structural changes to your underlying databases, which often means having to take a production server down for a short period of time while you make those changes. So it just gives you all kinds of flexibility. So the short of it is that we now handle that new type of field, but it is in the production release, so in the pre-release, and will soon be in the production release.
Very cool. And, a note on that is that's how Transform works. Everything in Transform is JSON. The form definition and the form data is all managed in JSON, which is really fun because you can do a lot of really cool stuff with it in terms of integrated Alpha Anywhere with Transform. And beyond that, and I'm going to show you a quick demonstration today, you can use that same methodology to make your applications more flexible, easier to manage. That's one of the key things is the traditional model is, okay, I'm building a system. Okay, let's build the data model. Let's decide what tables and what fields, and let's go in and put all that together and this and that, and a lot of work there. Well, if you look at the overall industry, there's a move towards what's called NoSQL databases, which mean that you're using just key value pairs and you're storing a bunch of JSON in tables, and therefore you don't have to spend a lot of time on sort of the plumbing to be able to modify your app, because each JSON is sort of an object. Like, let's say I had a customer and a customer had this information about them, their first name, last name, and what children they have. Well, you would go, okay, I'm going to put a customer table together, I'm going to put a children table, and then I'm going to put in all these columns on what they're going to do, etc. Well, conceivably, you could just create a JSON object representation of a person and children and store all that into a single field in a database, which is kind of the NoSQL concept. And we're going to show you a little bit more about that. It's really exciting. So again, our goal is to continue to mature the Alpha Anywhere platform so that people can use these modern techniques, thus reducing their work and effort. And more importantly, the thing to realize about JSON is driving a lot of our new controls, meaning that the way you configure and style and do everything else with modern controls is through JSON representation. So thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Very cool stuff there. And with the modern extensions of these databases, they can just rip through tons of JSON and do queries against that data, so you don't get a sacrifice of performance on your database structure. And you kind of have the best of both worlds, a traditional database based on a SQL structure, but enjoy all the benefits of a NoSQL sort of JSON orientation for some of the modern things there. So what are we going to talk about today? First, JSON. And I want to really explore that through two things. One is through what's called our JSON UX template, which I want to show you an example of, very easy. And then secondly is talk about the expanding menu and the fact that it's driven off JSON. Kind of show you both parts of it about how you would use these pieces from here. And then obviously, as we've done before, we're going to open up our presentation to questions, and we want your questions. So it's really helpful for us. By the way, we've already kind of spent a lot of time recently on the view box control. Guess what drives it? JSON. So kind of a common theme here. And the more you understand JSON, the more you leverage it and get a feel for it and understand how to generate it, consume it, use it, etc., you're going to open up a lot of creative pathways that you can use for your solutions to reduce the amount of work you do, and more importantly, make your solution much, much more easy to maintain, modify, and enhance over time. Less painful, a lot of more productivity that you're going to gain. So I'm going to jump over into my environment here. Let's go ahead and hide that. Oops, didn't have my thing up there. Sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. So I'm going to go into my demonstration environment. Again, I'm using a little different screen resolution, so I'm hoping that the screens will be a little easier for you to see than we've seen in the past. So let me go ahead and open that up. Go here. There you go. And up we go. So actually, let's go ahead and start with the expanding menu first. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my UX area because that's where I like to do it. I'm going to create a new UX. For people who are new, UX is our core form component. And what's really important about the form component is that it is mobile responsive sensitive, meaning you can have responsive layouts in it. Very, very handy here. So I'm going to create a quick little demonstration. So what I'm going to do for this, I'm going to go ahead I'm going to go to panels. And right now I don't have any kind of structure to my UX, so I'm just going to do my quick panels here. And I'm going to click an insert predefined layout. And I'm going to go ahead and let me just do a panel layout, which will have a header footer with a couple of panel cards. So this is a good starting point for any of your user interfaces here. Okay, and I'm going to save this as embedded, expanding menu UX, just there. Okay. And I'll go ahead and do my working preview. So nothing earth-shattering here, but I'll have, and I'm using the alpha green template, but you'll see I have like a header area, a bottom area, and then I have a couple panel cards here. So what I want to do is in this left area, I'm going to use it as a menu, and then I'm going to use this other panel to actually show information there. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to this panel card number 1 right here, and I'm going to go ahead and just make the layout size, let's say 15%, something a little smaller. And I'm going to get rid of the static text there. And I'm also going to go to panel card 2 and get rid of the static text there. So I'm just kind of doing some cleanup work right here. So now what I want to do is in my left panel, much like a tabbed UI, I want to have a menu. So I'm going to go over here to data controls, and I'm going to scroll down here to more, and I'm going to select expanding menu. Now, the reason expanding menu is in the data controls is because it can be data driven. It is not necessarily a fixed component like a static piece of text, which opens up a lot of really powerful features that you can take advantage of. So I'll click OK, and I'll call this main menu, just giving it a name of that and clicking OK. So now on the left-hand side, I have a main menu that's going to be in my panel card. And it is responsive. One of the key things you need to understand about expanding menu is that it is responsive. So I'm going to say, hey, guess what? Fill my container. Go ahead and take up all of that menu space in that particular panel card and be good to go. Now what I'd like to do is I'm going to go into my main menu here, and I'm going to actually manage it so there's stuff in my menu. Right now it's a blank menu. There's nothing in there. Now, there are a couple ways for you to load sort of the items that are in a menu. One is using the Genie, the other is just JSON. So again, once you get familiar with JSON, you can actually just paste some JSON in here and have a menu. But I'm going to use the Genie because guess what? The Genie helps me build the menu for me. So I'm going to go, oh, actually I want Genie. Okay, so I'm going to go to the menu data Genie here. And this opens up a classic editor, and you've seen this probably if you've used some of our tree controls and things like that. So I'm going to add assembling, and I'm going to sit there and go item number 1, item number 2, and item number 3. Okay. So I've added 3 menu items there. Now, the interesting thing about this is that behind the scenes, it is creating JSON. So this is the JSON that dictates that menu. So one of the powerful things you can do is as you get used to it, you can build your menu and then go in and say, oh, this is how it's done. I can generate this myself programmatically or do whatever you want to do here. So this easy to use front end allows you to do the JSON representation and show it from there. So I'll click OK. I've got some menu items in there, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to save that. Okay. So now I'm going to go into my working preview, and you're going to see now on the left-hand side of the screen, we have our menu. And this is a responsive menu. You'll notice it's stretched out to take the whole level here. It's using a default color scheme here. But you'll notice as I hover over them, the menu has all the nice little features of showing what's been where you're at. And then if you click on it, then things can happen from there. So let's just explore this a little bit more. I'm going to go back into design. I'm going to go back into my menu here. I'm going to go into my data Genie. Now, one of the cool things about an expanding menu is that it's ideal for web and mobile solutions because it uses a more modern style, but more importantly, you can have hierarchical items into it. So let's go to item 1 right here and call and add a child item. So we'll go item 1, child 1, and item 1, child 2. I'm just going to copy that real quick and click OK. So now you see we're building a hierarchical structure. Going to go ahead and do that here too, but in this case, I'm going to call it item 2, child 2. Did I go there? Yeah, this should actually
little
be,
typo there. Yep.
yeah, 1. There we go. Okay. So now let's take a look at our menu operating. And you'll see now it's put in a little caret because it knows it has child items. And you'll see now I can use this expanding concept to show my child items below it. So you can see it preserves a lot of real estate in the screen. It also looks nice. Look at those nice fluid kind of motions here. And so if this is on a desktop that you've got, got the click events, everything's great, but also on a mobile, it just looks and operates really, really nicely. So I'm going to go back into design. And what I want to do now is let's go ahead and look at that JSON. So as you can see, it's using JSON. I have a series of items, then I have item 1 and item 2, but notice that you have in here the children item is actually a item called children in here. Now back to our original discussion regarding the database, let's say I wanted to create a traditional menu system. So I'd have like the top level table, and then I'd have a second table that's linked to the top table to hold my children's item. So now I have to go in and set all those data. Well, with Alpha, I could just store all this JSON in a single field in a JSON field in my MySQL or MariaDB, and I don't have to modify my database design. I can just be very dynamic. And all of this can be done, this can all be done or created programmatically very easily within the system here. So it's pretty straightforward here. So I'm going to click OK, and that is just showing me that twice there. Now, great. So I have a menu, but does it do anything? Right now, other than look pretty, it doesn't do anything at all. So now I want to go into, say, item 1, child 2, and I want to add a action or behavior. So to do that, I go here to the on-click event for item 1, child 2. And so in here, I can go in and just say, alert, hello. Off to the races, so I can just put in JavaScript right here. So if you already have buttons that work, you can transport here. But I actually like to take a different way to do this, which is kind of a good design practice. So I've got my main menu here and I want to have certain actions occur. In this case right now, I'm going to use the idea of opening stuff up in this panel card too. So what I want to do is, instead of managing all that here, what I really want to do is go back to the UX level and go to my JavaScript actions. And what I want to do is add all of my behaviors and actions here, and then I can go back in and tie it to the main menu. So let's go ahead and click Add New Action, and I'll just call it Action 1. Probably use a better name for it, but I don't know what I'm going to do yet, so I'm doing that. And now I have my action builder. So I can go in here and say, you know what? I want to open a UX component, and I'm going to open up one of my UX components here. Let's try that. Whatever. I don't know if it works. And what I want to do is I want to open it, my target, to be my panel, and I want to open it in panel card number 2. So I've defined an action at the UX level, says whenever this action is triggered, open up that into it. And good practice is open pop, I'll do pop up UX in panel 2. Because notice, unless I know it there, I don't know what the heck this does. Okay, so now I'm going to add a new action here, action 2. It's going to be very similar to that, where I'll open up action 2, and we'll do an UX component. And I'm going to select another one here. I don't want to open myself in there. Let's do, what the heck, let's do that one. I don't know what it is, so. And then I can say open it up in panel card 2. And I'll go container show hide in panel 2. And let's do one other for giggles. Let's go ahead and add an action 3. And I'm going to open up that action there. And I'm going to add one of my favorite ones right now, which is called a transient message box. Hello, webinar, folks. Okay. Show transient. Now remember, I could chain multiple of these things together. So I can create very complex behaviors within this system here. Okay, so I've created my actions, but they're just sitting there. They don't do anything. So what I need to do is go back into main menu, go back into the data editor, and I'm going to go to this first thing. And what I want to do is on this on-click event, I want to trigger action 1. So I'm going to click there, and I'm going to go here to run a JavaScript action, and there's my action 1. So you'll notice now, instead of me embedding the actual action here, so it's buried inside my expanding menu, it lives at the UX level, and I'm just triggering it here. And therefore, if I ever need to manage an action, I don't go into any of the controls. I go to my central location and do it there. Very powerful, very good design technique and manageability. And it makes it easy for someone else who comes in and picks up your application to manage it to understand where stuff is at. So I'll go to on-click event here. I'm going to run my second action here for my number 2. And then I'm going to go here to 3, and I'm going to just keep doing that, and action 3. Okay, so now what I've done is I've modified this menu so that when these items are clicked, it's going to run my JavaScript actions. Now, let's show the JSON action in here. Ah, cool. You'll see that now we have these different actions here that are going to run these actions. And you can see that each of these items has an action associated with it. And then now in the JSON, it's actually saying, oh, what happens when you hit action 2 is it runs this little action, this little JavaScript here. So once you understand this, you can build this all yourself. Now I'm curious, item 1, I wonder if it's going to trigger action 1. Yeah, there is an action there 1, but it's, and I'm sorry, I know this may be confusing, is that each item has an action name, and I'm actually matching them to my own actions in there. So I should probably change my renaming a little bit because it's a little confusing. You'll notice here that it's saying when you click on the top level, it triggers action 1. Well, that action 1 is actually in the expanding menu itself. And there's actually nothing that's going to happen here. So what's happening is when I click that child item, it's triggering action 2, and I'm mapping that action in the expanding menu to my other one here. So I apologize, my naming's off a little bit, may seem a little confusing, but we'll go ahead and do this here. Okay, so I'll click save, and let's just run it and check it out. So I'm doing a working preview. And I'm going to click here. Now I'm going to click my first one and watch what happens. Check it out. It opened up that UX in this panel card here. Now watch what happens when I click here. It opens up my second UX here. And then if I go 3, you'll notice that it didn't open a UX, but it triggered that action JavaScript with my cool little transient message that pops up here. So now you have a central set of UX actions that can be triggered by this menu. And what's cool about it is that let's say you wanted to change this menu on the fly. Well, there are commands in there that says reload this menu as that. In fact, let me check this out. Let me try something here. I'm going off script here. And I'm going to go to here and I'll go menu. Yeah, I don't think it's in here. Nope, not there. I can go to text mode and go expanding menu. Okay, there are built-in JavaScript that says refresh expanding menu data. So remember, our menu is a data-driven object. It's built off that JSON. So there are a set of commands in there that say, for instance, refresh this or populate that, and it gives you examples here. And actually, let me go ahead and just copy that and insert this in here. And I'm going to do something crazy here. I'm going to go here and I'm going to say main menu. Okay, so this is just showing you, you know, that menu stuff. Well, here's that menu stuff right here, sort of, so you could just paste it here or all those pieces here. So now what's cool is on the fly, I can update that menu. So let me go ahead and show you an example of how to do that. So let me go into working preview. And as we had before, I built my menu manually, and everything's working great. Now watch, I'm going to click here. Watch what happens to this menu. What happened there? didn't update. Oh, that's why I get for going off script. Let's see. Let me go look in there at that. Object. There it is. Should be. So what I do is, I'm not sure why that didn't do that. Huh? So get control main menu. Go here. It should just say object right there. That's what happened, is that it populated stuff, but it didn't actually force the re-show. So let's try it one more time. So we're a little trial and error. You get it. Okay, so we have our primary menu in there, and now I'm going to do there. Check that out. Now I have a completely different menu in here. And
Cool.
again, if I have these just linked to my UX level stuff, it doesn't, it just says, oh, launch action 1, 2, 3, etc. here. So that's one of the powerful is now what I could do is I could go into my main menu, grab this data in JSON, store that in a table, and then on the fly, I could pull that data out of a data table and say, guess what? This is the menu I want to show now. Here's the menu I want to show you this now. And or you could run XBasic and generate this menu on the fly. Really up to you in terms of how you want to do it from there. So that is the expanding menu. The heart of it is the JSON representation. The power of that is it allows you to do that manually, but also you can go in and use action JavaScript and JavaScript here to load that on the fly. Which is really cool because guess what? This could be a navigator for like a database or anything else that's on the fly updating it. A lot of opportunity there. Now, I know I want to leave it for, I'm going to actually come back and talk a little bit more about next week, the populating of creating a form on the fly using JSON and UX, because I'd rather leave more time for questions today. I don't want to go all the way up to the end and not have enough time for questions. So I hope this is interesting to you. The expanding menu is one of these really powerful components that has an enormous amount of flexibility. We're just starting to tap into it. And as you can see, using the combination of the expanding menu and a series of JavaScript actions, you can create some very powerful stuff. And what's nice too is that it is responsive in nature. So let me go ahead and open this up. Last little thing before I open up for questions. Okay. So it's loading my bad boy there. Okay, so check that out. Now I'd have to make some adjustments there. What you can do is you can tell this like panel at a certain point, don't make yourself smaller than a certain size. That's part of the responsive layout stuff. But as you can see, you have more of a responsive environment here versus what you've seen in the past. And all of those features work. So like, yeah, I'd probably have to say, maybe this is the minimum size. And then below that, don't shrink this panel card anymore so that everything shows up properly. And nice, but you can see it's all responsive. It looks nice. It's contiguous now. You don't have a lot of chunky space and stuff. So I really am having a lot of fun with the expanding menu, and I think you'll enjoy it when you start exploring and using there. FYI, if you're still using the tabbed UI, which is great and awesome and wonderful, you can replace your left-hand side with an expanding menu. So you can actually build it as you do now, but you can say represent and show the left-hand navigation as an expanding menu. And behind the scenes, we're actually just using the expanding menu. We're generating that JSON and doing all that for you. So something really fun, something to use, and I think you're really going to enjoy it when you start using it. So at that point, Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you, and hopefully got a little more information.
Excellent. So we've got a couple of questions. So you've been showing or demonstrating this as a left-hand menu, but can you use this as a horizontal menu, or is it not designed that way?
Absolutely. Let's see. Let's go ahead and go here. And top to bottom, actually, I believe you can. It's completely flexible, but I think it's going to try and do it vertical. Yep, still doing vertical. So let's go ahead and do this. And that's a question. Maybe not. Actually, maybe it's all considered as a vertical. Sarah might have an idea on that. This talks about a little bit what's going here. Yeah, maybe a vertical only at this point. That's a really interesting idea, because you would like to be able to have like a vertical and then have, instead of it going and flying out to the right, coming down from the top. So you could have a traditional sort of mimic this, you know, along with the ability to have, you know, multi-level would be very cool, you know,
That would
there.
be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be a great feature request, and submit it, and we'll get it in there and put it on our list of items there. Because this is all rendered behind the scenes, so I'm sure there's a way possibly to modify that. So, but
Right.
yeah, I'm seeing no way to do it manually at this point.
Gotcha. Now, the expanding menu, can you contrast that with the menu control, sorry, the toolbar control, which I think we had spent some time talking about, I know, in the last couple of months or so.
Yes, they're very similar behaviors.
Hmm.
In the control bar control, let me go ahead and put an item in there. I think it's a data. No, it's under other controls. When you're in a control bar, you can also, let me go ahead and put a template in there. So we've got some stuff there. So
And is
in a
this
control
also
bar,
JSON driven as well? Do you know for the,
uh,
I don't think you get right to it though, do you?
no, you don't. There are a lot of
Hmm.
commands to be able to do stuff like hide and show things, but I think it's a pretty self-contained animal.
Hmm.
It's a cool idea. I mean, well, let me see. Let me show. That's the JSON. No, actually, you can get access to it. You can
Hmm.
see what
Yeah.
it looks like right here.
Yeah.
So you can see, but this is a little different animal, meaning it's a little bit more complex because it handles a lot
Definitely.
more things to do it. So,
Hmm.
but there's no reason why I think you could export it and maybe on the fly do those kind of things. But built into here are things like data where you can create items and then on the fly change their values and stuff like that, little programmatically. But in here, you'll notice in my control bar layout, it does have a similar behavior. And I think the rudimentary elements of the expanding menu came from here, sort of the
Hmm.
same stuff. But I have a menu layout here with a set of menu items here. And then those menu items, oops, oh, I just showed, cool. You can see the menu items here. And I can go to those items here and then see that, you know, how to configure it from here. So kind of similar behavior, but definitely main menu was really built to be more of a, you know, a little different animal from there, but the same
Right.
idea behind it. So let's see more.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few more questions, and back on the expanding menu. One is, can you do it as a right to left configuration? So if you are speaking a language which does not go left to right, you want to go
Yep.
right to left.
Like you have like
Arabic,
Hebrew or some
Hebrew,
other language there.
exactly. Hmm.
Um, we'll have to try and find out. I don't know off the top of my head.
We don't know. We'll
Um,
find out the answer to that one then. Yeah.
let's see. It's all configurable. So, um, yeah, I'd have to do some checking in there. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Very cool. All right, we will find out the answer. Okay, so here's a good advanced question. So when you're shrinking the width of the, say, in live preview or in something like that, and you want it to be responsive, would it be possible to have that menu be replaced with a hamburger button instead of the full menu?
Yes. And in fact, what's really cool
Uh-huh.
is I'm going to go to UX, and there's a great one in here called Mobile App Framework 2-Panel Responsive Layout.
Okay.
And this is basically how you do it. It says if the screen is wide enough, the left and right panel are both shown. Otherwise, the left panel is shown and the user must invoke. So this kind of shows, let me see, maybe this is a little better. Now, let me just show you this one here. 2-panel. And we'll just do a demonstration of that first. So we'll do it in my preview. Yeah, let me launch it all the way up into. Come on. Oh, it's just taking a moment. Oh, it had a. This is a little older animal, but it still applies. Okay. So you'll notice in here that you have two panels because we're width. But now I'm going to turn this to vertical, and you'll notice that we're now showing one panel and the other panel can swipe out. So the idea behind that is that's this particular body of what's going on here, and it explains how it works here, where you basically say the panel has a layout size set to 300 pixels, and the right hand has a minimum size of XYZ. And so what you can do is instead of just showing this menu there, you could actually then say activate a control bar and show the menu up here. So you could hide and show that control bar and say, oh, now it's shown. Or you can have a control bar up there and then say, oh, now just show that one item in there from there. And that's called the, and let me get the name again so you can explore it there. It's the Mobile App Framework 2 panel responsive. And again, there's a lot of help text in there that shows how to find out when things happen and how to set these different panel cards to different sides. So the idea is you'd say, if the amount of space gets to a certain point, then say, okay, that's it. Let's move that panel card, let's hide it, and then activate another device, say the hamburger menu in a control bar to show the menu there. And again, the documentation is in there. It's really, really handy there. And that's where you can often, these kind of behaviors and things like that are built into here. So it really allows you to kind of see one working in operation, and then you can go in and look behind the scenes, and there's a lot of help text. Like if I go in here, you'll see in this one, there we go here. You can see it actually talks about how it's been built. And so you'll see that you set the minimum size. So for instance, what's going on here is panel card 2 has a minimum size of 300 pixels. And that's as small as it will ever get. And so what's happening is that it says the panel has a minimum size of 300. That means if there's not enough, the panel will not be shown. Well, if that's true, it's going to automatically take care of hiding that for you. But you're going to have to use a combination in here, and I'm going to the properties, responsive layout settings to say, well, if the screen width is less than 600, then what I want it to do is show a button. So in that case, when I was running it, what happened was when we went too small of a size, the panel disappeared, and that was automatically done by the panel itself. We didn't even have to worry about that. But how do you get that panel to show? Well, in this case, what we're doing is doing a little what's called a responsive layout genie that says, well, if it's less than 300 or 600, trigger this little piece of action JavaScript, which now shows that button on the first page. And let me go back and show you that here. So you'll see that I have a button right here, and that button is not shown unless this panel card is empty. And you can trigger the same thing of saying, well, instead of showing and hiding a button, I could send a command to a control bar item to say show and hide, i.e. the menu, the hamburger menu. I can say, hey, show that layout there. So this is a great way to examine that. It's easy to understand because it's a pretty simplistic example, but you'll be looking at, most importantly, setting minimum sizes for layouts, and then going to the properties, responsive layout settings here. And in here, you can see the rules and then what happens with those rules. So for instance, when the screen width is greater than 600, I'm setting that button to be false. When the screen is less than that, I'm setting that button to be true. Pretty cool. And that's actually going to be used in other situations too. I mean, we're using it here, but you could copy this JavaScript and use it to show and hide buttons. I usually like to do it in containers, but you can show and hide buttons other methods here. So that's called, so that's how you would do it there. Sorry, a little long-winded, but.
Very, very cool. We actually have a few other responsive questions. Actually, the first question asked today was a responsive question, so let's get into that one.
Yes.
And the question is there an easy way to change the header style based on whether the user is viewing the page on a phone or on a desktop browser?
There you go. Yes, and that's through this responsive layout settings.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll notice right now we're just doing screen width, but when you add a rule, let's say it's a phone rule, and then I'm clicking here. So just to go a little slower, I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea here is you have a set of rules, and when these rules are triggered, these actions occur. So when this rule triggers, these actions, and you can have more than one action, so you can do that. So I'm going to add a new rule. I'm going to say phone rule. I'm going to insert a field here that says, okay, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of
Wow, there's a lot of
device.
choices here. You know if it's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
Kindle or if it's a Galaxy or if it's a phone or if it's a whatever. Wow.
exactly. So I would
Yeah.
probably pick this is mobile.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say equal to, I think it's true.
And is
Yep,
it equal for JavaScript?
I think it may be. Yes, yes, right here. Uh, Insert equals. Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Good catch. Let me delete that. You can see just to help you write it down below, like equals or the or operator. And these are
Set
all
two
JavaScript.
pipes. Those are all
Yeah,
Java, right? Exactly.
this is
Yeah.
all done. Since it's all done live real time.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I've got that rule here, I can go down here and say, okay, notice that this is one of the tricky parts. And this is something you got to realize is that there are a series of actions here that are always going to be triggered for each scenario. So for instance, I'm always going to trigger a JavaScript here, but you'll notice it's empty. When I'm here, it's got something going on. So that's again, just to make sure you understand is that you're going to have a series of actions, but each time for each of these, those actions can be slightly different. It's still going to try and trigger a JavaScript, but you'll see there's nothing in there, so nothing's going to happen. So in this case, I'm going to do, dialog.object dot control panel, or no, control bar. Let me do this here. So I would probably have two control bars, one for there, and I'll go ahead and insert a method here. What is it? Control bar. Maybe I don't have one on there, so it's not showing. Let me do something real quick. I'll come back to this in a moment. I'm just going to go here,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just going to stick up here. Control bar. Okay, now I'm going to go back into my responsive layout settings. I wonder if it in certain responsive, let's go here. Oh, wrong one. Add rule, phone. There might be a subset of things it can do, so that maybe I might have to get back and do a little research on that. Oh, you can update variables here. There it is, set layout. There you go. Okay. So what I'm going to do, okay, and then I'm going to set the layout to phone layout. Okay, so let me explain what happens. So I add a control bar to my environment. Now, when I have a control bar, I can have what are called layouts. Each layout can be optimized however you want it to be. So you could have a desktop layout where you have a whole bunch of icons on it, or you could have a phone layout which has a hamburger menu and maybe a title because you don't have much screen real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Then what I can do is say, detect if it's a phone, and then it's going to run this little thing. So first thing it's going to do here, it's going to get a pointer to that control bar that's in my environment. Then what I'm going to do is say, set the layout to be the layout that's optimized for the phone. And so then I can grab this. This won't work, but yeah, I can click OK. Now what I can do is add an action here, and I can say, I'm sorry, I'm going to go here and add a rule. And I'm going to say not phone, which could be a tablet or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say is device is mobile is, I think it's bang equals false. So I'm basically saying, okay, if the device is not mobile. So it's going to look and say, oh, I'm not on a mobile device. And therefore, this is going to render to true because it's going to say, no, yeah, you're right. You're not on a mobile device. Then I can go to this JavaScript right here, use the same exact stuff, but I can say desktop layout. And so you can use that. And these can get like, these rules can say like, is it a mobile with this size screen? Is it a mobile with this size screen? So you can kind of fine tune it. And the cool thing about that now is that you don't have to worry about it. When they load it up on a mobile device, it's going to run these rules. The moment this UX gets opened on that mobile device, it's going to run through these and it's just going to fire these things off for you. So once they're set, it's set it and forget it. The Ron Popeil method of responsive layout rules. And that's how it goes. The tricky part you got to understand is that if I add an action here, so let me go ahead and add another action. I'll call it JavaScript here. Okay. If I go here, notice I have 2 JavaScripts on each one. And that's just a little confusing. The idea is that for every one of these rules, if it evaluates to true, it's going to run through all these actions here. And as you can see, there's a bunch of actions. Like for instance, I can set a certain panel layout. I can set the values of control bars. Oh, this is probably the better way to do it there. You could say, oh, you know what, set an active layout for a list control. So like when you're on a phone, you use a mobile optimized layout for a form for a list control. If you're on a desktop, you maybe use a columnar file. So there's a huge amount of flexibility. And the cool thing about it is that now you don't have to build a UX for every one of your target platforms. You can build one that's responsive and works well on all your applications and all your platforms. Great question. Thank you. Kind of went into a deep dive there.
Yeah, very cool. Quick question, this one. Can you use the navigation system in a panel card?
Let's see, navigation system in the panel.
And I
by navigation system,
I think they mean the control, the expanding menu that you were talking about before.
Oh, in a panel card, or
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, it could either be a control bar. Well, if the person wants to specify, they can. But let's start with either one. Let's start with control expanding menu. Could you use an expanding menu in a panel card, or is that something that sits outside?
Okay. It actually lives inside panel cards. Yeah.
Oh,
so in my case, I'm doing it right there inside that one panel card. Gotcha. Now, it doesn't have to be in a panel card. So if you have just containers and stuff like that, you can do there. But the reason I do that is because then I can use the fill container and panel cards, and I can do a bunch of fun stuff, like for instance, I can put a button here. Just show you real quick. Button. I could hide this panel card and have it slide out, so the menu kind of slides out like a, and other things you can do, which is real fun.
Very cool. Someone asks, when are we getting the iPhone X in the working preview for alpha? That is a terrific question. I will go and bug them about that right now. That list of phones is getting old, and we just need to update it. So I don't think it's a big deal. We just need to grab some screenshots and put them in the software and
the only other thing about an iPhone setup is that
there is the IPhoneX styling. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, because you're going to see, because of that notch, which is fantastic for face recognition, but a pain in the tail
for designers.
You do have to make allocations for the fact that may be there, because I've noticed, for instance, that we tuck underneath there. So there's actually an example here of PhoneGap with IPhoneX styling that you can look at. But more importantly, here's a link here called Styling a PhoneGap app for the iPhone X. And this opens up a complete discussion on how to set up and style your documents. And this is on our documentation site. It's got the little notch there. So it talks about the fact that, oh, you notice how this, they've got this space here. If you don't make allocations, these things show up here and are hard to activate. Bob did a great job of showing how all that works there and explaining how to do it and how to set it up so that it operates correctly. And you can find that by selecting PhoneGap IPhoneX styling and clicking this styling of PhoneGap there. There's a lot of documentation on there.
Very cool. So we're a little bit light on questions today. So
I know.
If you want to start typing in some questions, that would be good. Let me take a look and see if there's
I know.
If
not.
Someone asks if these videos are available for watching later. They certainly are. There is
Yeah, except for
a
you,
link.
except for that one guy. We've marked your name down.
Except for
Yeah,
you.
everybody gets it
We've
except you.
we've marked your IP address. That's right. You're not getting in.
You've been 86'd.
It is. In fact,
You've been
I will post.
ghosted. Oh, I guess that's the new term now. You've been
Well,
ghosted.
yeah, there you go. Boy. Yes, you can find it. You can find it on YouTube, but actually, let me grab the for Anywhere demo and webcast video list, and I'm going to
Yeah.
paste that into the chat window. If there is something in particular that you're looking for, though, go ahead and send an email to guides, GUIDES, at alphasoftware.com, and we'll be happy to get to you. Is there a way to, oh, here's an interesting one. Is there a way to change, a way to display the name of the security group that a user is logged into? First of all, my understanding
Sure.
of that is that a user could be in multiple security groups, but
Yes.
I think we can actually query that, get the answer, and display it if we wanted to.
Absolutely. And the way you
All
do
right.
that is through the context objects. So let me go and I'm going to go into the amazing documentation system that Sarah manages, nurtures, makes it happen. And what you want to look up is in context. Okay. So again, this is going to be server side. So we have what are called the context functions, and I'll paste this in here. Nope. Let's go. There we go. Okay. So there's this thing called the context object, and what's important about the context object, it works for standalone alpha, IIS alpha, and alpha cloud. So very, very powerful to use this. So in here are a whole set of basically commands that allow you to do, for instance, create a user. So for instance, I can emit this command, context security create user, give it a username and a password, and then it will generate that user. But one of the ones I want to use is and their methods are down here, is get user roles. Okay. So you can run this little item here. So you can say user roles is equal to context security user roles and then pass in the username. So you would get the username and then pass it in there. And then this comes back as a character line feed delimited list of roles. And then you could then put that onto the interface. So again, let me go ahead and copy this. And I will put it into the chat window here. So that's right to getting the user roles there. And let me go back up to here. And the second link I'm sending you is this level, which explains all the security objects here. And again, the neat thing about this is that this, again, works on any alpha environment. So therefore, you can create a user on IIS or anything else. And we don't have to worry about the underlying structure of how the data is supported. It's just going to happen. And then you can query the security system to pull back information about the current user. And so you would use the context.security object along with the these different fields to do those pieces there.
Very good. So I have a layout question or a styling question, and this person has got I'm going to make some presumptions, and they can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like they have a panel card, and in the panel card they have a header. And the header, when they change the color, which they can do is fine, but there's always like a little line or space in between that header and the rest of it, and they can't seem to change the color on that. So maybe we can replicate that.
Do
Maybe we
something
can't.
real.
Yeah.
Okay, the working preview in here. I think that will use the standard styling for the header. Okay. It could be because the style I have is not showing a line, but see, the panel header is going to pick up a standard class from the alpha styling system. So depending on which style you've picked, it's going to pick up a different class there. So possibly could be a class override, or even a container style, where you go here and maybe you say, for instance, top padding, like let's try 20 pixels or something like that. And then that would push it, the style of that maybe up, like 1 or 2 pixels to cover the space that's being shown. You'll notice that it's now you'll notice my header here is overlapping that. And actually, if I go in here and I say this is -2, I can actually force it to have a line. My guess is you'll want to do it with class, but okay, no, let's try something dramatic.
Excellent. And I see, okay,
yeah.
So the person who has asked this question, if you could email us in a UX component as a test case, just a simple one, and just show us
That would help
where the
us.
line and what you're changing, then we would be happy to go over that well, first of all, we'll give you the answer, but I think it would be helpful to show other people how to track down issues like that.
Correct.
Sometimes they're not as easy as we'd hope. So
yeah.
Yep. Let me see the list. Okay, when you were in JavaScript for the on-click panel stuff, it says you did something in the editor to show a list of the available fields to fill in the main menu object field name. How did you do that? I always have to leave the editor, write it down, and come back.
Yeah, so when you're in the editor and you're in text mode, you're going to notice down below there are these little blue.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where you find it. So it's called Insert UX Component Method. And in here is the online documentation for all of the JavaScript here. And what you can do is you can either insert, and it'll insert the basic structure, or you can actually copy. And the cool thing is there's a ton of sample code that's in here showing you an example of how to do things in here. And so you can copy that to the clipboard and then just go right in here and paste it. And then you can then edit it associated there. So again, when you're in the JavaScript editor, look for Insert UX Component method here. I was showing you that if I'm on like a button here, I might have to go to text mode there, or if I add a new action, which is a JavaScript action, then you'll see down here like insert method it brings up this here. So you may have to do a little detective work, but it's always available.
Okay, so once you choose a method, how do you find the objects that are available with that? I think there's like an autofill option.
Oh yeah, yeah. So let me go ahead and
if you want to
grab
demonstrate that, I think that might be what they were asking.
Oh, okay, I see. Gotcha. Okay, so
So
let me.
I know the name of the control.
Yeah, let me go ahead and go here to and add a button there. Let's go other controls button. Oh, not an image. Okay. I'm going to go in here and I'll go there and I'll just go ahead and put in panel set active. So this is a classic one, setting an active panel. Okay. So this is there. If I click right there and hit space, then the autocomplete will bring up the instructions explaining what that value should be. But you'll also notice that there's this little area that's highlighted in black in the background. If I right click on there, it will be smart enough to do an inspection of in the current UX, what controls are available. So I don't have to actually go out and hunt that down. So I say, oh, I'm gonna make panel card 2 active. Then you'll see that it actually writes in that the exact name for you there.
Right, and it'll do that with fields and controls and stuff like that when you're doing like a set value.
Exactly.
Well. Right,
yep.
Exactly. So put your cursor next to what it is that you want to replace. Wait for the help to pop up. I think you have to put a little space in between.
Yeah, usually have to put a space to trigger it.
To trigger it, right? Then right click on the thing that's highlighted and it'll show you the things. The other thing it says is you could press control and the down key to do it. But
yeah, let's try that. That's cool. I'll go here and I'll do control down. I'm on a Mac keyboard, so it might be screwing up.
Oh, well, there you go.
There it is. Yeah, I did.
All right, cool.
Yeah. So you don't even have to do the space anymore. You can just do control down.
Apparently we answered the question. They said, why didn't I know about that a year ago? Good. I
There
hope
were
we
only
saved you some time. That's
yeah.
what we're great.
Well, there's
Uh,
JavaScript coming. There are actually JavaScript classes coming soon, so that stuff's
oh,
coming along.
fantastic. From Giant
Yeah,
Killer Training. Oh,
yeah, it's gonna be XBasic first. A lot of XBasic questions out there, and then JavaScript. And it's not gonna be like JavaScript. How to write JavaScript. It's gonna be JavaScript on how does Alpha
well,
use
yeah,
JavaScript. Yeah,
exactly.
the
The
real
JavaScript you
way.
need to know.
Yeah, the important way, not this trivial other stuff that's out there. Waste your time.
Great.
No, it's exciting.
Well,
But great
Dion,
question. Thank you very much.
thanks very much for presenting. We have come to the end of our time. Thanks everyone who showed up, especially you guys who asked questions. And if you do have more questions, go ahead and send them to guides, GUIDES, at alphasoftware.com. And we hope to see you next week. Take care and goodbye.